Hello everybody, thank you for coming. First things first, last time I didn't have any audio for the first 5 minutes or so let me know if you can hear me. Hello. See, that's better already. And I've got the chat on my screen this time, so for anybody who didn't know, this is my second live stream, so possibly expect some problems. But let me tell you about what we're doing today. Take you to my desk. We are going to draw the biggest project from my drawing book because I did a poll and everybody voted for the haunted house, which is this guy. So it's kind of a pretty big picture. I have no idea how long it's gonna take, but it's gonna be really fun, I hope. Let me look for it in the book as well. Here we are. I think it's, in the book it's a 16-step project, but normally I would have you draw it and then trace it onto a new piece of paper. That would be really chaotic right now, so we're not gonna do that. We're just gonna draw on the paper that we want to use. So let me tell you what you will use. You need a piece of paper, and you want a pencil, an eraser, and then some kind of a permanent pen. I've got a whole bunch, but you don't need to have that many. And then something you can color this with. So go ahead and take a minute to grab that and maybe a drink. Hello, Mish Mish. Nice to meet you. And let me know when you're ready to draw. I have my watercolors, but oh, if you do get paints, don't forget your water, because I did. And I'm going to show you exactly the way I did this in the book, but I would encourage you to just draw it however you like. You absolutely don't have to do the exact same thing I'm doing. So just follow along as much as you enjoy to. Oh, Tal, it's you! Hi! Hadn't seen that username for you before. Are you gonna draw with us? This is gonna be really fun, I think. I am fully in Halloween mode over here. And we actually, we carved our really big pumpkin yesterday, so now I feel like Halloween has really started, because that's what we do every year. Well, I hope you're gonna really love it. You guys let me know what you're drawing with. So I'm really curious what you're gonna do. But let's actually then start doing this. And I'm gonna quickly show you the page a little bit more closely. I'm hoping when I draw on this, that is with my pencil that you'll be able to see it. I'm gonna do it really big, so hopefully that'll be a good example for you all. But this is the first couple of steps, so we're gonna do the house first. And again, don't worry about making it exactly the same as this, because it doesn't need to be anything like mine to be cute. Yes, Paul, that's a really good point. Paul is in the room with us, because he's the technical person in the house, so if I break something, he can come over and fix it. So, let's do a house. I'm sorry about the shadows, by the way. We're gonna start with just a little rectangle for the building itself. Can we see this? Yes, we can see this. Great. Just a closed off square, and then a triangle on top. And you can make the roof as shallow or as tall as you like. It's gonna be fun. I think a lot of people are really intimidated by drawing houses because there's all these details that are supposed to be symmetrical, but in my experience, when you do this, it's actually not a big deal if it's a little bit wonky. The best illustrators draw kind of wonky, so I don't worry about it. So let me just do this slowly, and I'm gonna keep my eye on the chat. Warn me if I'm going a little too quickly. Also, this will go on YouTube after, so if you have to leave in the middle of it or anything, you can pick it up again. So for putting a roof on this house, we're just gonna go sideways from the bottom of this little roof bit, and gonna go sideways just for a little bit, however far you like. And we're gonna do 2 lines like that. And we're also gonna do it up here, but we'll do it a little bit lower than the point of the roof. And we're gonna keep that one a little bit shorter than the bottom line. And again, they don't need to be super straight or perfect. And we're gonna connect these two. And we're gonna add a couple of lines to this roof. I really want a roof like that. Although, what we actually have is pretty good too. But I've always liked actually these kind of, you know, the metal roofs with the lines in them. See, I messed this up a little and now it's like, it's got a really wide thing on the end, but we can fix that when we do the ink part. So don't worry if yours is like that. Then we're gonna do the other side of the house, but we're gonna leave this higher up because I'm gonna put a porch underneath. So a little bit higher up and connect it to the roof like this. I'll hold it up to the camera because they are kind of thin lines. That's what we got. I think probably most of you will have done a house in this way. Because actually, when I designed the projects for my book, if you have the book, you can have a look. I really did my best to design everything. It's basically just squares, rectangles, triangles, circles. Just lots of them together, and really that's the cartoonish drawing style all put together. It's just those shapes, and it's really, really fun to do, and it doesn't have to be all that difficult, and that's what I love about it. So okay, now the porch. The porch is gonna be a little tricky, so I'm actually gonna do what I've got in the book in 2 steps. First we're gonna go a little bit diagonal here, and we're gonna add a rectangle to the side of the house like this, and then we're gonna add stairs to that, just a couple of steps, and the steps are just gonna be, let me show you in the book. You're gonna do however many steps you need, but make little rectangles, and each one is gonna be a little bit shorter as you go up. And then when you connect those lines, there'll be steps. So I'm gonna do mine. And these little rectangles, as you make them, as long as you do a tiny little diagonal line to connect these to each other, that's what makes them look like the flat tops of the steps. See, now we've already got a little house. And again, let me know if I'm going too fast, too slow, or if you have questions or anything. That's what I'm here for. Let me drink from my lovely mug as well. And so now we're gonna make the house a little more complicated, and we're gonna add some dormers to the roof. Again, let me lift this up because I'm really not sure how well you can see this. These guys And if you think this looks a little bit complicated, it's totally okay if you don't add the side bits. You could just do a basic house shape again with a triangle on top, and it'll look totally fine. So up to you if you want to add sort of that perspective bit. And this you want to put a little bit up from the bottom edge of this roof. Just like on a real house. And this is actually something that I really miss, because growing up, my bedroom was in a dormer. And it would be really loud when it rained, and you could hear the raindrops and bird footsteps and stuff. It was very, very atmospheric. Also a little bit loud. So basically these dormers, they're just another little house shape, right? Exactly the same as what we started with over here. But you can now start to see why I want us to sketch in pencil before we go over this in ink, because I'm starting to draw these things on top of each other. And it's a lot easier to put these things in place when you have the guidelines of what's already there. But once you go to inking this, you don't want to have all those lines. So we're going to erase all of this at the end. Although, if you've got my book, we're not going to do it that way in the book. In the book, I use a light box or a window to trace it all. And for the side of the dormer and the roof, you're doing the same shape that you have at the bottom here, again, but a little bit higher up. And connect it like this. So again, really a bunch of triangles. Dormers, I'm also going to add a couple of little lines to those. So that's them. I hope this is working out for all of you. And now we're gonna make the place a little bit more complicated. I think, yeah, let's do the door first. We're gonna do a door. I'm going to do a circular door, like I have here. See, this is what we're doing. We're doing the door, and we're gonna make the trim on the porch. But do any kind of door that you like. This is a great opportunity to draw your dream house, or your childhood home, or your current home. I think it's really fun if you make it personal. I think this is one of my favorite projects because you can do so much with it to personalize it, but it'll work exactly the same way. So yeah, putting a door. I always like a curved one. Gonna put a little window in it. That's a great opportunity to have a ghost peeking out. Gotta look for those ghost opportunities. Love to draw haunting. And I'm gonna add these little panels that doors can have. Do you guys miss that with modern houses? I feel like doors especially used to be so much more interesting when they were made of wood still. And now we all have these really industrial doors with no interesting details on them. I miss those. I have a feeling you're kind of designing your doors, so I'm gonna wait a little bit to give you time to do that. Okay, so now the porch, it's gonna have pillars, and we're gonna draw pillars right down from the roof down to the porch. And it may or may not end up covering this line down on the wall of the house. Not a big deal if it does, just when you go to color it, remember that's just where your house ends. Yeah, mine's gonna exactly cover that up, but that's fine. And I'm gonna have 3 of these all to the sides of the door. Like so. And what we're gonna do I haven't shown you this in a while, have I? Here's mine. What I'm about to do is add a little fence to the pillars. And when you do that, don't draw the fence in front of your door unless you want to draw a house that nobody can get into. Which, honestly, that sounds like a good idea sometimes. But you know, maybe not the friendliest thing to do. So again, it's just some lines. And then underneath lines, some smaller pillars. I'm kind of tempted to like take one of the pillars out and put it like down here in the yard, but I think I'm gonna leave it neat, just to keep things in line with my examples. Let's look at the next one. I'm gonna bring the book up again. Really love how this camera is doing a good job focusing on this stuff. This is nice. So, gonna add a whole bunch of windows. And I think, like the door, this is gonna be one of the opportunities to draw something sort of personal and interesting and cute. So, yeah, let's go top to bottom, left to right, I guess. This is gonna be a curved window, because I just like my windows curved. But if you want to do it different, you could try and make the house look like it's got a face on it. You can have windows look very easily like a mouth and some eyes, and that's always really cool. And I didn't do it in this project because the book has 2 other houses that look like screaming people. So I figured for this one I would not. There we go. And don't worry about being too neat right now, because we can be neat when we add the ink on top. Or the paint if you prefer. And this window, it's got, you know what, I don't know the shutters. It has shutters. So it's, when you do shutters, you want to make, you know, you cut the window in half in your head, and then you copy that shape like a mirror image, and then that'll be a shutter that fits your window. And I'm exaggerating that shape a little bit for fun, but you don't need to. I know I've said it like 5 times, but I'm really hoping that you're personalizing this to your own preferences. Shutter's again gonna be a bunch of lines in there. Those are slats, I think. It's really great when you got these really specific words for things and it's not your language. This is awesome. Alright, so the other window, I don't know if you can even see this right now, but I put tiny little bats on top of these windows. I think I'm gonna leave them out this time, but maybe put a skull. Because when I was doing this project, I remember taking ages to decide if I wanted bats or skulls on top, so this is my opportunity to do skulls instead. Again with the curve. You could also make like a little bit of a pointy top to those. It's like a more gothic look. I really like that kind of window as well. These ones, we've got a little windowsill, I believe. Yeah. Or at least the bottom trim is a little bit bigger. And skulls, if you never thought about it, they're just little mushroom shapes. Put little eyes on. And we're gonna divide the windows. This is all getting really finicky and small. I'm gonna do a cross this time because this is gonna be a tiny bit spookier with the skulls. There I go. Hope you like my house. This is the same for me as it is for you guys, really. I'm just following the project and doing my own thing because it's obviously actually very different from when I made it for the book, because first of all, I spent like 20 hours making this. And we're not gonna spend 20 hours today. But also, there's no pressure now to make it look any particular way, so that's really nice. Okay, Okay, one final window to go. Got a really big one on mine. And you do, if I were you, I would add a kind of big window here because, let me show you, why isn't it? I could have just put this in view actually. What I'm doing with this bigger window and this one is I'm gonna put a paper skeleton in there. A big window is just a nice spot to add some cool Halloween decor. So that's what I'm gonna do. Again with that little windowsill. This one I put, I did a really interesting window on this. I don't know how I got that idea, but I still like it. I'm kind of proud of past me for the window shapes. That's nice. And still we're doing, you see that? Just half circles, squares, and lines. So most drawings are like that. They look really complicated, but you can really break them down into very simple shapes, and it helps a lot. There we go. Some lines. All of this is super old-fashioned. I love like little slats in the windows and all of that stuff. I would absolutely move into some old Victorian mansion if I could. Let me get some more tea as well. I was complaining to my husband about the timing of this earlier because my voice is so crackly. Because the heaters have just turned on again because it's getting cold here in the Netherlands. And my voice is just like high. And so I keep drinking to try and fix it. So I hope you guys have been able to keep up with this. We're already at the part where the whole house itself is done. So if anybody felt intimidated by the house, that was the hard part. Now we're just gonna put a bunch of ghosts and candy and decorations and stuff. Is that the fun part for everybody? For me, that is. See, we're just gonna add a ghost here and then a ghost here. So our first ghost is gonna be coming out of the top window. And if it helps, do I have some scratch paper? Yes. If you have a hard time designing a ghost and where its arms are supposed to go, what you can do is just draw your ghost as a little bell shape at first, like this. Whoa, that's a very crooked ghost. And then just add the arms after, when it's easier to see how tall your ghost is. Ta-da! Ghosts are easy, folks, and they're very cute. So I'm gonna do exactly that in here. Nice little bell shape. And then some arms that are swinging these windows open. There we go. Can you remember the last time you were so excited that you opened a door or a window like this? Make a little happy face on it. And that's one ghost done. Now our other ghost. Oh, thank you, husband. Paul's cheering me on for the little ghost. The other ghost we're gonna put on the roof. And at the end of the drawing, they're gonna be untangling a bunch of decorative spider web. If you think it looks a little bit too complicated to do right now, it is okay to just draw that web on all the way at the end when we're done coloring. It's nice and easy that way, because this time, if you're doing it now, it'll be easier to follow your lines. It'll also be a little bit harder to understand what to color. So that's gonna be up to you. And this ghost, it's gonna still be a bell shape, but it's gonna be a little bit folded on one side, so that it's kind of sitting on the roof and its fabric is kind of coming down the roof. There she is. We're gonna give a little arm and another little arm. And this one is not happy. This one is a little bit worried. because it's complicated. And I'm gonna put... I made my ghost too small, guys. See that? My dormer's really short compared to this. But this is a great example of why it's not gonna really matter, because I'm just gonna connect the web to the ghost and to the roof, and they are still untangling the web just fine. But it's just connected a little differently. See? And spider webs, it's basically triangles with little bent shapes inside. There we go. I think that's, yeah, that'll do it. All right. That's actually half the steps done already, although I shouldn't make it sound like that's gonna be quick, because obviously the whole tracing thing, the coloring thing. But nevertheless, we're gonna have a third ghost decorating the house. That's our next one. And what I'm gonna do in this case is draw the decoration first. And he's gonna have the streamer, it's called a streamer, right? Bunting, maybe? What does the book say? It's bunting. So we're gonna connect that to the house, but the other end is gonna be not connected yet, because that's what the ghost is holding. So when we've got it a little bit further along than the house, we're gonna put two little ghost hands, gonna put the thread between, and have a little trail. And then we're gonna do a little bell shape, drawing the ghost behind this, because that's an easier order to do it in. And this one's currently gonna be looking up at that one. Because I've done two of my ghosts smaller by accident, this is now like a parent with some kids, and I think that's kind of cute. That's a fun coincidence. So, this bunting gonna be just a bunch of triangles. And now you can see very much why we wanted to do this in pencil first, because this is all covering up stuff we've done before. And that's gonna be complicated. Now for these bottom ones, make them very, very skinny triangles, because they're drooping. So this is what I did this time. Looking decent, I think. And then next, I'm gonna put a skeleton decoration in the window, and I think I've got some tips on making that fairly simple while we're sketching, because I recommend not adding too many details to that right now. You can do that when we do pen. So I'm gonna do, and I remember redoing this a bunch of times for the book to make it fit in my little window slats. Oh, sorry about the camera. Okay. But really the face, it's gonna be an oval. Put two little circle eyes, triangle nose, and just a longer line with three smaller lines, and that's your skeleton face. And I think I've done it that way to make it look like a decoration rather than an actual skeleton. It's just a little bit low detail, see? And we're gonna keep it low detail. For now, we're just gonna draw the rib cage as sort of a triangle. We're gonna add ribs to that when we ink it, because it's unnecessarily complicated right now to add all of that to your sketch. It'll just be kind of difficult to see what you're doing and where everything is, so we're not gonna go about that right now. And then there's an arm, so that's gonna be one little stick, two little sticks, and then 5 little sticks sprouting off of that for the fingers. There's my ghost in the window. Ghost, my skeleton, see? Oh, now it's not focusing. Great. Well, I hope you could see that anyway. And from here on out, definitely suggest decorating however you like. But what we're doing in the book and what I'm gonna do is we've got this tree, some lights in it, bunch of pumpkins. After that, we're gonna do a cauldron and a broomstick. And I'm not gonna look further ahead yet, but believe it or not, there's still another decoration. All right. So first, we want some sort of dead branches back here. Or if for any reason you're like really into pine trees, let me show you a quick pine tree. Because pine trees are really easy. You can do a triangle and then add some little scallops like this. And then you add to the bottom a slightly bigger row of scallops. And you keep going until you think your tree is tall enough. So if you prefer that, there's your other kind of tree. But I'm gonna stick with my dead tree back here and just make some kind of curvy lines. The only thing you want to make sure is that the bottom end is wider than the top. And then it'll look like some spooky branches. I'm gonna do a couple of basic big branches and then add some smaller ones to it. And I hope we're getting some good spots for me to hang my little lights from, because that's gonna be different for everybody's picture. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna add the end of some string lights, so just the part that doesn't connect to anything, start that off here, and you're gonna draw some curved shapes towards your branches in different directions. So first we're gonna go all the way over here. We're gonna pretend that it's doing something else behind the house. And then it's gonna come back up over here and drape around this branch. And then over to this branch and behind the house. So this is just really a mess of little wires. You don't really need to add the lights right now either. That's one of those things you can easily do when we are inking this. Keep it simple for yourself right now. Next, doing some, well actually, in the book I did the pumpkins first. I actually think we want to do the cauldron first today, just to make it a little easier. So we're gonna put this cauldron sort of halfway in front of the house. And the cauldron, again, really just a big circle, isn't it? But just with a little trim on top. There we go. So you curve it outward. Top edge also a little bit rounded. And then add a curved shape down here. And now this at the bottom, we're gonna add a squiggly little line, because the house is going to be sitting on some dirt. So part of the cauldron will be buried. In the picture I've got a bunch of candies in the cauldron. You can just draw a sort of wobbly, cloudy shape and add real candy shapes when you do pen. Again, to keep it simple. Behind the cauldron, we're going to put a witch's broomstick. That's basically, let me show you, a big eyeball shape, but a little bit prickly. That's what that is. And then you add a stick. I hope I'm actually making this easier by describing the shapes all the time. I think that's just how I learned and how I still draw complicated things. It's just like, okay, that's like a triangle, you know. So, an eye shape next to our window. Make it a little bit brick. That's just a zigzag line. We'll make it look like it's got little bits sticking out of it. Gonna add some little sticks to the bottom and then 2 little lines. And now I think it's a much better time to put the pumpkins. We're gonna put... I'm gonna show you how to do a pumpkin, but for now, totally fine if you just draw some ovals where you want your pumpkins and then fill them in later. So a pumpkin, let me actually grab a marker that's a little easier to see, is essentially a bigger oval shape with then on either side 2 little oval shapes connected to it. See, and you can do that without connecting the ovals all the way, but that's still the way a pumpkin works. And you can make them taller or shorter, and then you add just a random little flame shape for the branch that used to be on it. You can put some leaves if you like, but that's how you do pumpkin. So we're gonna put a bunch of those around the house. Let me now actually show you that step that we did earlier in the book, but we're gonna do now. I have how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 pumpkins. Wow. That's about how many I have outside my house right now, actually. My husband and I brought like the really big pumpkin in yesterday, and it was human-sized, human weight. It was very, very hard to lug around. But we made it into a really cool vampire face. So again, for your pumpkins right now, feel free to totally just make them some ovals and put them anywhere you like on your house. I'm gonna this time put them in front a little bit more than I had in my original picture because I made my porch lower. And it is nice if you give them a couple of different sizes, or maybe pile them up a little bit. I'm gonna put this one on top of this one this time, just to mix it up a little. And again, we're gonna add some squiggly lines to the bottoms of all of them, just to remind ourselves, because I'm gonna forget those are in dirt and I'm not gonna put the squiggly lines later. I know myself, so I'm just gonna do that now. And you can pick one of your pumpkins to put a little witch hat on top of. I'm gonna pick this tall one. And that's a tall triangle with a very skinny oval attached to that. It's gonna be hard to see at this point because my porch fence is all the way through that, but I think you can just about make that out. And then we've got one final decoration on the house, and it's a little bunch of flowers on this one. It's right there. That's a bunch of very random shapes, so feel free to put, well, nothing or a little ghost. Maybe a string of eyeballs would be fun. So if you don't want the dried flowers, go ahead and skip those. But if you do, a really handy trick for a dried flower, let me show you that too, is you're gonna start with a little circle shape. You're gonna make it a little squiggly around the bottom. And then you're gonna just add sort of a triangle shape like this to the middle and add some more squigglies around. And that's just, if you're doing this on a small scale, that's dried flower, it works fine. So you're gonna do, I think, do a little oval first for the thread attached to them. Have a bunch of little sticks sticking out of that. Bunch of sticks coming out the other side of that. And then you're gonna add a couple of your little flower shapes. And a couple of leaves. Oh, hi Steve! Nice to see you! How long have I been explaining without noticing that? Thank you for stopping by. We're just about finishing the sketch for the house, but if you're good at drawing, you can just follow along with the ink part. We just did this little bunch of flowers on it. That was the last of it for the sketch, I think. Yeah, that is. Again, this is kind of where we're headed with it. Gonna have some tea again. Now, does everybody have their sketches except for Paul, who isn't participating? Gonna give you a second. It's been cozy so far, right? I'm surprised at how very different my house looks from the other one. I think this is actually really common when people do projects from my book. They tell me like, oh, but Marcie, mine doesn't look like yours. And I'm always like, yeah, mine's not gonna look like mine if I do it again. It's very, very hard, actually much harder to copy something exactly than to draw your own thing. So definitely don't feel discouraged when your drawings look different from the example you're using, because that is absolutely normal and okay and fun. Alright, so we're gonna add now we're gonna add actual ink on top. Ah, you've got it, Tal, that's great. I'm sorry, by the way, for responding to you guys really late. There is, my husband tells me, quite a bit of input lag, so I hear you guys' words about 30 seconds after. But I'm doing my best. And I've got some pens. And something I think that's pretty essential about this style of drawing that I want to explain to you right now is that it's very handy to have two kinds of line thicknesses. I think it's best to probably show you on the actual drawing. As you can see, I've got sort of thick outlines for the roof edges and for the bunting, for the ghosts, but then when we get into the smaller stuff like the candies and the pumpkins and also these lights and the spider webs and things, I've used a little bit thinner pen, and that's gonna really help a person distinguish which parts are kind of like the big important things in a picture versus the details. So for example, I wouldn't put really thick lines in this broomstick because it would look really, really messy. There wouldn't be much left to color. So it is up to you. Some people just use one thickness for everything, but if you want to make things a little bit easier to distinguish, it's nice to have thick outlines. And Tal, I'm so curious what your house is looking like. You better show me after this. Really want to see that. Also, I think we don't need the book now, which is good, because now I can make room for my paint that I'm about to need. Bye, book. Actually, let me show you one more time, because I love my book. My book is very cool, guys. We're proud. Alright. So, we're gonna start outlining this, and this is gonna be our long step. I have no idea if I'm like fast or slow at doing this. So if in about 15 minutes I'm like, oh, I'm all done, and you guys are like, I'm like halfway, please warn me. I can go get like a little snack, make a little drink, we can have a little chat about Halloween, and I can totally wait. So let me know. But actually I think I'm kind of slow. We will see. Now, what I would recommend is actually doing the ghosts first, and I'm gonna do this in a really thick pen, just so you can easily see this. Let's see how that works out. But the ghosts are sort of the central, the focus. You want to be sure that you're not like drawing your windows through your ghosts. So we're gonna do ghost first. Nope, that one's too thick. Well, maybe. Let me see how this one is. Now I'm gonna have an interesting, really thick line on that one ghost, but that's okay. And you do want to be careful. I just told you, like, put the ghost in front. I've got, like, the trim of my bunting in front of my ghost, so still mind that bit. Don't put your ghost on top of something that is in front of it. But this, I think, is kind of the complicated part when you're tracing something, because normally, like I said, I would have you sketch it and then trace it onto a new piece of paper. And what that does is it allows you to trace the sketch without all the lines that wouldn't be visible anymore. So that makes it a little easier not to get confused, and this is why I'm putting a lot of focus right now on don't cover anything up, because it is all still visible. I'm just gonna do this piece of fabric that it's holding while I'm at it. But like this ghost as well, because it is leaning out the window, we can see all the window bits. It's just easier to get the ghost out of the way first, because then you've got a reminder like, oh, all that other stuff we aren't gonna be drawing anymore that's inside that shape. Oh, there's a hair. Of course there's a hair. I've always got hairs everywhere. Alright. Doing my little ghost. I think the only person here who lives in a country that actually does Halloween is Steve, but have you guys decorated? We don't have a ton, but like I said earlier, I just absolutely love to carve a pumpkin every year. And we always buy a lot more pumpkins, and this is like country prices. So like the giant human-sized pumpkin that we bought, it was 10 euros, about $12. So that's like basically nothing. I think we've got about 15 pumpkins going on right now, and we spent less than 50 bucks. It's really, really nice to decorate with that kind of stuff, because we do live in farm country. So lots of people put stalls by the road and put cute corn and other dried grains and things, and like this is a good area to live for natural decoration. And also, as most of you know, I like to hike a lot, so I've got like pretty leaves and acorns and things that I bring in. My decorations are overall, despite what we've got going on right now, typically not that spooky, but more so just very fall. Although I did like make my pumpkin look like a vampire. Alright, so from here on out, what you're gonna do when you go over all of this with pen is you're gonna look what is in front, and you do that first. So in this case, for example, this I think is my best example. These pumpkins, they're covering up so much of the porch. So I'm gonna draw the pumpkins first, and then whatever's left behind it, and that just helps me remember what is actually still visible from what I've got sketched. Also, I'll bring it up again when I do it, but like we haven't put actual candies in the cauldron yet. We haven't attached the little lights to the string that we have. So these are things that we're just gonna add now. Don't forget them. Although I think it's actually this, if you did forget, you could just add some little shapes inside that shape and it's gonna be absolutely fine. I actually think this one is pretty foolproof in terms of forgetting. I think the only issue that you might run into is like accidentally drawing your skeleton in front of your window slats or something like that, which is not the end of the world really. Because I actually noticed that the project in the book has a mistake like that. I just did not see that. And I've checked it like 5 times before it went to the publisher. So don't worry if you do mess like one of these lines up. It's fine. Oh, it's more hair. Great. I'm gonna put, I think, my witch hat and my pumpkins first because they are at the bottom and they are the front layer. So that seems handy. Also, that'll give you guys a chance to get another reminder of how a pumpkin shape works. So I'm gonna not forget to draw my dirt at the bottom is what I'm gonna do. Gonna do an oval, and I'm not gonna finish the ovals entirely, but I am gonna draw oval shapes that overlap, and that's your pumpkin. It's very handy. And then this one, it's not gonna have the stick because it has another pumpkin on top. So if you've got stuck ones, skip the branch. And also for anybody who joined a little bit later, again, this is going on YouTube right after. So if you wanna see any of the instructions again or start over or just slow down and finish it, then you can totally do that. So again, all these little ovals. I'm so curious what your drawings are looking like. I really hope you'll show me. There's one. And one other thing I didn't do for this drawing, but you totally could if you wanted to, is make a jack-o'-lantern out of one of the pumpkins. Because the only reason I did not is this is a 70 project book, and I already had so many jack-o'-lanterns in there. So I decided to leave them out in this and show people some other decorations you could do. So now right now I am adding small lines to my pumpkin branches with a smaller pen. So now I can finally show you an example of that stuff. See? It just looks a little more textured when you use a smaller pen for those bits. And I'm just gonna continue my pumpkins, and I think after that it's gonna be kind of the windows and then the dormers and then the roof, you know. Just try to think of it, if this was real, what would be in front? What would you be closer to? And that's the order you want to draw stuff in. Just to make sure you don't confuse them too much. Or maybe this is not a problem for anybody else. This could totally be a me thing. I do have the ADHD, so for me it is difficult, but probably not for everybody. Let's do a tall, skinny pumpkin this time for some variety. Because you can get them kind of pear-shaped, right? Little gourds as well. Add some more lines. And then now for mine, my pumpkin is behind the cauldron, so I'm gonna go cauldron first. Cauldrons, by the way, are like, if I had known how much I was gonna struggle making that symmetrical, I would not have started drawing them in the first place, I think. These are kind of stubborn to do, which is another reason I normally sketch and make a big mess and then trace it onto a new piece of paper, so that if I get it wrong, I can fix it in that step. But today, I wasn't so sure that it was daytime for everybody, so I did not want to make you trace everything. But if you're watching this after, you could totally, it would be easier if you had a sketch and traced it onto a new piece of paper to then go into it with ink, because it's just one more chance to clean up your sketch. There we go. And now, book picture has a whole bunch of different stuff like lollipops and things. I think for this one, I am gonna put one lollipop in there, but for the sake of making this not too complicated and too finicky, I will just put little balls for the rest of them, because lots of candy is round, right? So that should be fine. Just like you would do a cloud, but with one lollipop. Gonna do a little spiral in mine. Have you guys ever had actually the spiral lollipops? Because I feel like in cartoons you always had the same lollipop, and I had never ever seen one for the longest time. So the first time I found an actual spiral lollipop, I bought that and I just kept it for a really long time just to look at it. Because I always thought those were so pretty. And this is so interesting. I get told that I have sort of, I feel like I've got like quite a simple drawing style, and then other people are like, Marcie, your style is so detailed. And now I'm not sure how complicated this actually is for other people because I get told such mixed things about it. Well, since I'm on this end, I'm gonna do my broomstick. Again, we're doing a little oval because that's the little thread. If you've got an old-fashioned broomstick, that's a whole bunch of little branches pulled together by a thread. So this is our thread, and I'm gonna do the outline of this thing in my thicker pen, but I'm gonna do the detail lines with my smaller one. There we go. This is just a bunch of random squiggles. That's always the part with drawings that's awesome, isn't it? When someone explains and says, just do a bunch of squiggles. But that's what we're doing. And then just a bunch of little lines in it. And these are going in a fan shape. Let me show you. All the lines I'm putting on this are like starting in the middle and then sort of fanning out towards the edges. Because obviously it's a lot narrower at the bottom. There we go. That's enough lines for me. And then let's stick with this side of the house for mine. I'm just gonna do the roof, which is gonna be the part that looks, I think, the wonkiest. I've always had a little bit of a hard time making these things the same width all over. This is also something that I've noticed in myself because I do record myself drawing all the time for YouTube videos. I usually put 1.25 speed or so for most of it, just to make it a little faster to follow. But then when we get to the part where I need to do these lines that are parallel and need to have the same thickness all over, all of a sudden I'm like 7 times slower. Just something I noticed about myself. Also, you may notice with the sketch, I didn't have you do this, but the picture does have these little slats on the house. Are they slats? Those are slats, right? The reason we haven't done those yet is because there's actually no ink here. I just drew a darker brown line on top. So you can do that. You could also do them in pen if you like. Just wanted to say you can totally put those in now if you want them. You could also totally have some brick if you liked, because brick is just a repetition of a whole bunch of rectangles. It's slow, but it's not hard. Let me try to straighten the side of my house a little bit. There we go. And again, a squiggle at the bottom because that's in dirt. When I did the original project, I had such a hard time sort of reining myself in and keeping things easier to follow, because normally most drawings I'm like, let's do a million little sprigs of grass and bushes and all of that. But when you're explaining it in like easy to follow steps, that's all squiggles, right? So I tried to keep that to a minimum a little bit. All right, so now the window, this is where we don't want to put the skeleton in front, so I'm gonna go window first so that I can easily see which parts I've already covered. Also notice how I was like, I brought a big sheet of paper so I can draw this really big. Yeah, it's so much bigger, isn't it, than the previous drawing. It's just the same size. But oh well, that's okay. I think you can still see it properly. I guess I'll find out when it goes on YouTube. I can check back for myself. Again, trying to keep this a little bit even. We're already going pretty far along with this. I wonder if YouTube will let me add chapters after so I can sort of explain to people where we are in the process. Actually never checked, because this is my second live stream. Thank you so much for stopping by, Tal. I hope you got pretty far with your house. Just come back and finish it if you like. And I'm looking forward to seeing what you made. Also, with these window things, it can be a little bit hard to make them all go in the same direction, but because this is a haunted house, I think that's not such a big problem either, because maybe the house is a little bit messed up. You could also add a broken window if you like. That's a really fun decoration. But see what I mean? Now that I've got this, I can see more easily what parts of my skeleton are gonna be visible in here. So that's why I did window first. Because I think when you're going into more complicated drawings, that's the part where you can most easily lose track a little bit. And the only thing that really helps with that is the order in which you do it. Also, since I had you do the skeleton's chest as just a triangle at first, this is where we're gonna add the ribs to that. And ribs, you're just gonna fill your triangle with little lines. And now you don't have to pay attention to how wide you make those, because you already put your triangle, and it's gonna make it so much easier. Because rib cages are another thing that I found really complicated to draw at first. But when you do the cartoon style a little bit, it's not as bad. Got the arm. My whole window's different, so this hand is like halfway disappearing behind the window, but that's okay. Thumb would be on the inside. There we go. And at the end, I'm going to use pens as well to draw the insides of these windows because they are completely black. So we're going to do that. But first I'm going to do this bunch of flowers, which I think is the part of the project that was hardest to explain. I think in the book I just put draw a bunch of flowers because these are not, you know, like circles or something. They are all kinds of weird little shapes, but also no one's gonna notice. You could do little circles if you wanted. It's gonna be absolutely still reading as dried flowers because have you looked at dried flowers? They're just these little crumpled messes, which is, I don't say that to be mean. I own lots of dried flowers. I like them. But they don't have a very specific shape that you need to adhere to, so that's very relaxing when you draw those. And then, just like with the broomstick, we've just got a bunch of lines going inward towards the middle. I'm gonna use my small pen to add the other branches in. And again, this is not something that needs to be super specific. It's gonna be, you're gonna color it green and then it'll look absolutely fine. We're gonna do the window around this other ghost, which is also gonna be easier to tell now that the ghost is already here. There we go. This is kind of interesting, I think, for the people who watch me on YouTube right now. It's gonna be fun for you to see the speed difference between doing this in real time and the way I usually edit, because I will normally turn these kinds of things into like a 15 to 20 minute video and it's gonna look like it all was really quick. But we've already been here for an hour and it's, you know, The lines are coming along, but we've still got to color it. It's a very different pace. And I think for me, I actually really enjoy watching other people work at their normal pace, because it's kind of like being in an art club, and this is something I've been complaining about lately. There is not an art club near me, and I really wanted to go to one, but I can't, so I like to watch other people draw as well. Alright, now I think I'm gonna just finish my left side of the picture first. But this is gonna be a little interesting. What you're actually gonna wanna do for this, with the wire, with the Christmas lights, is draw the wire and put the lights on before you do the branch. But do pay attention. Like for example here, my wire is behind the branch, so don't draw that bit, but because of the positioning of the lights, it's gonna be nicer to not have your branches yet, because some of them are gonna cover the branch. So keep that in mind for the order of drawing. Of course, I told everybody to do it their own way, so it may be that you've already got that in. And if you did that, I hope it worked out. Probably did. You're gonna put a bunch of just little circles roughly at the same distance on your wire. And you can go either side of that, because that is what string lights do. They kind of spread out and go all over. Gonna put one behind my branch. And it's looking a little bit complicated right now, but we're gonna make little lines connecting them. And try to roughly keep them the same size, but you may have already noticed mine are not exactly the same size. I think it's really easy to judge your own drawings way more harshly than you do other people's. Because I'm often like, oh, this is such a beautiful piece that someone made, I could never do that. And they're like, oh, I hate it, I made like 20 mistakes, and I don't see the mistakes. So please look at your own artwork with that kind of an eye too. So now that we've got all this, we're gonna connect first all these lights to the string. Like this. And that's why I had you not do the branch yet, because I have done things before where I like connected the light to a branch. Because once you've got that, it's going to be a little bit harder to follow. So that's why we're doing it this way. It was kind of interesting when I had everybody vote for the project they wanted to do, and everyone was like, we picked the haunted house, which is, I think, the biggest and longest project that I've got in here. And then I was like, oh, maybe I should not have put the haunted house, because it does have so much going on, and it is like a long, complicated drawing. But at the same time, it is one of my favorites, and I do think it's really, really fun. And I think this project, if you do the whole thing, it's gonna actually teach you a whole lot about drawing this way. Because we've had so many examples of interesting techniques and interesting ways to make things a little simpler. There we go. And now I'm gonna start bunting, and I think we're gonna tackle this whole spider web roof situation, because this is the complicated part. And I kind of want to get that over with. Here's one of those lines again that are probably a little crooked now. Oh, not too bad actually. I have messed those up so many times. And that's exactly the reason we did do this pencil first, because can you imagine having just to start with to draw all these things without putting anything behind them? That would be like a nightmare. So we're not gonna, I immediately was like, let's still do the sketching. We did this in my other live stream the same way, except that was a lot simpler. We did a mommy cat. If you guys want to draw another project with the instruction, there is another one on my YouTube channel. But yeah, let's do this whole spiderweb thing first with the dormers. I'm gonna do everything that has to do with those. I think this is also one of those parts where it's kind of easy to get lost in all those sketch lines. So be a little bit careful that you don't do anything that's not supposed to be there. I'm gonna put my dormer roof like this. So now that this is here, I can start putting that weird spider web on top. I think I'm gonna, for this time, do these lines a little bit thinner on the roof so that it's easier to distinguish the spider web. I'm gonna make that thicker. And I think this is such a relatable thing for anyone who's done kind of Halloween decor, any kind of decor really. If you've done string lights or the fake webs or anything like that, that stuff is always tangled. And it's just kind of part of holiday tradition to figure it all out and untangle it. So that's what I wanted to put in here. I like to draw a lot of humorous stuff in general. And also this, if you're doing it, because this is the part I am most worried about people getting upset about maybe getting wrong. Keep in mind you cannot really get this wrong. This stuff is tangled. So whatever you're doing, even if you just want to like scribble, that is totally okay, because that's the whole point, is that it is tangled and we're having a difficult time untangling it. So absolutely do not worry. Although, as I say this, I've realized that I have made my ghosts have it mostly untangled at this point. So I may just add a little bit more to make it look messy. Yeah, let's do that. I'm gonna just add a little bit over here, just in a little triangle shape where it's like folded. See, now it's just a mess, and that's the whole point, because it's just tangled. There we go, and this is the part that is in place. So these are just some nice even lines. But do you see what I mean? When you go to color this, it's a good thing that everything behind it is just roof colored, because this is actually kind of insane to tell what you're doing. Right, let's get the roof finished. Got my tiny skulls on my windows. Although, do you want a reminder of what the bats look like if you want to do bats on yours? Because I did think that the bat windows were cute as well. Just wanted to make a couple of little differences because I have already done it like this, so I do want to do it a little bit different. Just to make it more entertaining for me to do it again. And also because I felt it would be more fair to make my experience more similar to yours, where I am doing it the same way as you guys. Sort of drawing certain things for the first time and figuring out how to make it look the best. Because I think that is something I do miss a little bit. Because I don't very often do other people's classes, although I'm about to start a set of them and I'm so excited for them. But it's just different to do things for the first time to someone else's instruction, like a style and things that are new to you. I really love that. So even when I do something like this, I really like doing it a little bit different than I did it last time, to keep it fresh for me. There we go, we've got our dormers. It's gonna be interesting in a minute with roof lines because I messed up my roof lines. I'm gonna see what I can do to make them a little bit better. But first we're gonna draw the roof, but not through the ghost. We're gonna start the roof next to the ghost. Can you tell that I did this wrong the first time I did it for the book? I think twice I put the roof through the ghost and I had to remove that. But it's not the end of the world, of course. There we go, roof. What's also interesting is doing this all in the same direction, like leaving the paper in place, because normally when I draw on my own, I'm like constantly flipping my paper and making it easier on myself to see what I'm doing. Also, I am better at drawing straight lines like this than I am at drawing them like this. But this is good practice probably, because I ought to be just as good at doing them in that direction. It's the same line. Okay, let's, I'm gonna do it properly this time. One very handy little trick when you want to divide a roof into little planks is you can start in the middle and then divide that shape up and divide that shape up. So that's another way to do this. If it actually goes in the middle, because mine I think is not exactly in the middle. But I'm gonna do the best I can, and I don't think it's gonna be that big of a deal. Also in real life this would be wrong, because technically there's a little bit of this roof hidden. But it's not real life, so that's okay. I think that's something I had a really hard time with when I was really young, because my drawing career started with realism, actually. Realistic portraiture and stuff is what I first did, and also landscapes. And so for the longest time, my main goal was to draw things as realistically as possible. And that's kind of more stressful, because there is objectively a right and wrong way to do that, because the more it looks like the real thing, the better job you've done. And then when I started doing this kind of stuff, it was really difficult for me to be like, oh, how do I know I'm doing it right? But I also came to realize it doesn't actually matter. You can just do it the way you think is gonna be prettiest, and it's gonna be great. As long as you're doing it to your own preference, it's all good. And that's, I think, what I like about it. There we go. Love that I put this whole fence on the porch, and now there's just, the whole fence is gone. Needn't have put the fence, but that's okay. Next I'm gonna do our door and the back line, and then our little porch steps are gonna be the very last bit. And also, what's interesting is this is the edge of the house, and this is your porch pillar. It's very likely that your picture also has this. When you go to color this, remember that this is actually a white gap. You probably have a white gap here. That is not part of your house. That is not a porch support. That's just a little stripe of air. That is another thing I got wrong when I did it the first time. So the door. And like I said, I really have a feeling that some people draw way faster than me. So I hope everybody has been able to keep up with this. I definitely, well, the only example I've seen of someone drawing in this style was my husband doing one of my tutorials, and let me tell you, he did it so much quicker than I did. Yeah, that's funny, isn't it, honey? He just picked up this huge piece of paper and he put the whole drawing down in like 2 minutes, and I was like, whoa. Because I'm not the type. I like ponder things. And I worry about them, and I take a really long time to get them done. But not him. And that's something I admire about him. He just gets things done. Whereas I make like a 70-step plan before I do them. There we go, that's mine all the way done. And I'm gonna give it a minute because if I start erasing this right now, that ink is gonna come off. So I'm gonna give it a second and then we're gonna erase all of that pencil. Although if you're not bothered, feel free to just leave that in. It's not a problem. This is chamomile tea with cinnamon, by the way, and some milk. It's very good. Very soothing. Alright, let's gamble this and see how that goes. I apologize in advance. I'm pretty sure something's gonna shake on my desk, but I'm gonna do my best to keep it a little bit gentle. And then we're gonna get eraser dust everywhere. It's one of those things people tell you to use like a kneaded eraser because it doesn't make any dust. I feel like it also doesn't erase. Is that just me? When I use the kneaded eraser, it always leaves like half my pencil on there, so I have stopped using that. And I will just deal with the dust, which I much prefer. And now I know two of you guys have had to leave in the middle of making this, so I can't even ask you how your drawings are going because you're gonna finish them later, which is such a shame. Because I also know both those ladies' art styles are so cool and also very different from mine, so it's gonna be so interesting to see what they did with it. So I thought that was really cool as well. A part of making my book that I thought was absolutely amazing, because again, I really want an art club, is people are sending me their drawings that they're making and it makes me so happy just to see how different it looks depending on what all these different people use for their lines, for their colors, that despite following my tutorial, they're making things that look completely different, and it's so cool. Oh, you use them for lightning lines. Oh, that makes sense. Because when you do like oil paint or like acrylics, yeah, you're right. Oh, that's so handy actually. Should consider that again for when I want to do some more painting, because I've been into that lately. Well, that's not properly erased. Hold on. A little bit more. Hope all your drawings are doing okay. Or that you're having fun, because that's the most important part. I feel like people always forget that for the most part, unless you do it for a living, art is here for fun, and it's a really enjoyable activity to relax with. Even if it doesn't turn out looking the way you wanted it to, you will have had a really nice time and you will have relaxed, and it's actually really good for you. Alright, so if you've all got your sketches, I'm gonna start adding some color to it. I have watercolor, and I've got my really messy palette. But again, use anything that you like to color yours. And the first thing I'm actually gonna do is my blacks with just a marker. And we're just all gonna start coloring this. And I think this is where I'm also gonna not do exactly what I have been doing, which is follow the book, because I could be trying something completely different, and I think that sounds more fun. Although I will probably still put the slats. And I'm gonna color it a little bit messily for the sake of the time of the viewer. But obviously you can take your time with this. You can stay after I go, you can watch this again. You can do whatever you like with it. So don't feel like you need to be quick with it because I'm being quick with it. Although right now I'm not being quick, but I am gonna be with the paint. Because some people are gonna be coloring with markers and I know that's gonna be like a 10-minute thing. Which sounds pretty good, actually. I love markers. Do you guys have this problem? Because I have become like this ink and watercolor artist at this point, but I love basically every material you can get. I think everything I ever try, I'm like, oh, this is cool, this is fun. So I'm constantly thinking, should I draw with this? Should I draw with that? The only thing I don't really get along with is oil paints, but it's purely because of all the smells involved with thinner and stuff. Because that gives me a headache. But I absolutely love the look of oil paints. I really wish, I think Sandra and I have talked about this, I wish I could do that because I do love a really, really detailed, smooth art style. That's why I started off doing realism. Because it is fun to really get lost in the details of something and just take a really long time making it. And that's something, I think one of the reasons I gave up on realistic drawings was because it took such a long time and I wanted to do so many different things. That I was like, I want a style that's a little bit quicker. But now I sometimes really miss the very slow styles as well. Alright, so there's my blacks. That's also gonna need to dry a little bit, but I'm gonna gamble it and start adding There's odorless thinners? Are you serious? What? Okay, I'm gonna have to start doing some oil paints at some point. It was the one material that I wasn't using for anything, and now it's gonna be another thing that I need to try. That's funny. I've got a little bit of scratch paper. This is maybe handy for you as well, even if you're not doing paint, just so you can see how certain colors go together. That could be really fun. I know I just said I'm gonna change things up. I'm still doing a yellow house. Because that's just a really nice base color for everything. It's not white, but it is neutral, you know what I mean? So I'm gonna just, like I said, I'm gonna make this a little bit probably messier than I normally would because I don't want to hold you up for too long, but I do want you to see the full process. Linseed oil, yeah, I know that because I've got, I use actual linseed quite a bit, but I did not know you could use that oil as a thinner. But linseed is actually, when you cook plant-based, it's you mix it with some water and that's what you use instead of eggs as a binder. And I can have eggs, but I sometimes don't want to, so I have done that before. This is, by the way, a way yellower house than I had originally because I do think it would be fun to have slightly brighter colors this time. I made the other one a little bit muted. And if you are doing watercolors or markers, you've got kind of two ways to go. You can mix them or you can layer them. I think in this case, when we get to that part, I'm gonna show you guys more of the layering method because that's a little bit easier to follow. Instead of just being busy mixing a bunch of colors on a plate for a really long time. By the way, is anyone doing an Inktober thing? Because I know actual Inktober is basically cancelled for like doing something rude, but I do know a lot of people are doing art challenges, and I'm kind of sad to have to skip them this year. But I've been dealing with a little bit too many health issues, but I've been having such a good time seeing what other people are making for all of those. It's so cool to see everybody focusing so much time on doing daily artwork and expanding their style and doing all kinds of things. I think that is so fun to see. Oh, do you see that? I just put a bunch of orange on my house. Whoops. Let me pat that dry a little bit, but I'm not gonna make too big of a point of that because watercolor is kind of fun for that reason, the fact that you can sort of let things run into each other. I like that it's a little bit painterly. Also, I'm proud that I didn't accidentally paint my little bit of sky next to my pillar, like I said. Because I get confused when there's too many lines going in the same direction. I forget where to color. But that's okay. Just telling you because I want you all to know that it is totally fine if you don't get everything perfect. So this is something I'm giving it a color now, but later on I'm gonna add a shading to the side to make that a little bit darker. But for now, I just want to color the whole building. Now I've painted myself kind of into a corner because now everything's wet. So the tree, maybe? Why not? And this is kind of simple for me now because I've got a bunch of paints mixed on this that I like the colors of, so that's a little bit easier than coming up with them right now. I think it's really interesting sort of doing this teaching thing and telling people how to do things because I am a rather kind of chaotic person actually. So when I draw normally I jump all over the page and I start and stop in different spots and I add details that I shouldn't yet. So doing this book and then having to figure out how to teach other people how to do this, it actually helped me streamline my own process and doing things one step at a time, which is something I was never really good at, but I can do it now. I guess probably window details next. I will still do those brown, but what do you think? Maybe purple roof? I think a purple roof would be really interesting. Ooh, that's a tiny window. I'm gonna do there's the hair. Did you know we have like, how many pets do we have? We have like 10 pets. So there's always hair.
7.
Oh, we have 7 pets. And one of them doesn't have hair, she has feathers. But our dog sheds to the point of it feeling like we have at least 3 dogs. We love him though, but it's a lot of hair, guys. And if you're watching this later, or also the people who are here now, I am kind of thinking about teaching people to draw sort of coloring page style because coloring pages are so popular. And I've been hearing people talk about being like, oh, I wish we had a coloring page about this topic or in that style. And I'm like, you could, draw that. And I think I want to try to teach people to do that. How to draw like in kind of a, a thicker line. What usually these really popular coloring pages are is a similar style to mine, maybe slightly less detailed with slightly thicker lines, but it's a style that's relatively accessible because it's not got a ton of like, they're already used to the coloring, so you're really only learning the line bit. But do you think that's something you would want to see me do? Because obviously now that I've got the book and people are like saying they enjoy it, and also I'm realizing I really enjoy teaching people, I think I want to expand that into teaching people in some other places, in some other ways. I think that could be really, really cool. But it is also one of about 50 things that I am interested in pursuing. So I would love to hear from people if that's actually something you want to do, and if you like to color, if that is something you've thought about, is to just actually start drawing your own pictures to then color them, because that's actually really, really, really fun. Because it's not always gonna look exactly like you wanted it to 100% of the time, but it's actually kind of close. You can make it about exactly what you want to see and draw all your favorite things. And so I think that might be a really fun thing to teach people. And I do think that people think it's very, very hard to do this, but actually, for almost anything you might have difficulty with, you can sort of do a little modification. So if you're like having a hard time getting your lines straight or knowing what to add in the first go of a drawing, you can just endlessly trace this thing until it like looks the way you want. It's not nearly as difficult to start up as people, as most non-artist people, I should say, seem to think. You can just, there's a lot of styles where you can just trace things and do them over until you feel better about the way it looks, and it's really, really not as difficult to access as a skill. And I think you don't need to be all that far along in learning it for it to have a satisfying result for you, because I remember, well, first of all, I've not been doing this all that long, because like I said, I started with a very different art style. But also I can remember even the very first time I drew something like this, it was really, really wonky. And the what's the word? The proportions were totally off, but I still thought it was already so fun. Because when you really think about it, like, have you seen Tim Burton's drawings, or that one guy who did the Roald Dahl books was really, really popular? There's a lot of styles that are very, very loose and with really, really interesting sort of proportions. Because I just saw a documentary where it actually Disney told Tim Burton that his style was not like acceptable. So I just want to challenge that idea as well. I think drawing is so much more accessible than people think, and aside from apparently Disney, everybody else thinks that a loose style or a little bit wonky style is absolutely fine. And also, if you want to be more along the lines of someone who spends 60 hours doing one picture and adding a million details and tracing it 50 times until it's perfect, that's also absolutely possible. I just really want to challenge the idea that people have that drawing is only for specific people, only for people with a particular skill, because I hear people say so many times, like, with most creative things, like, I can't draw, I can't sing or anything, but you totally can, you just do not yet like the way that you do it, but you can do it, and you should. Quentin Blake, yeah, thank you. I could not for the life of me remember the name of that guy. But that was like kind of similar to Tim Burton, right? A really loose, really expressive, playful style. And it just means that it's a more, like the opposite of, I'm really bad at names today, but you've got your styles that are super precise with very meticulous line work, And then you've got your people who just do everything with one really quick line and do it really, really loosely. And it's just two sides of an art spectrum. But they are both equally great, I think. And it's so much fun to sort of explore where you are in that spectrum. But I just want to encourage you for about the 5th time to start trying these things, and that's why I am uploading this. And why I did do a drawing book, because I do think that anybody who wants to draw is able to and should try it. And it may take a minute, or it may not, but sometimes it can take a minute to find the style that you enjoy doing, but you can totally do it. And you'll probably really love it. I'm just going orange for this. I don't know if I'm gonna regret that. Yes, people are their own gatekeepers, and I think I did it for a really long time. I don't know about you. I think you might recognize this as well, but I've done it a really long time where I was like, I have no business doing just this other style because it's not what I'm used to doing. And like I said, it doesn't have an objective goalpost where you can be like, when I can do it like that, it's gonna be perfect, it's gonna be correct, because you're the person making up the rules. And that was really hard. But when I started doing it, I just found so much joy in it. And sometimes I like my pictures and sometimes I don't, but I never regret making them. I never regret trying it. And I think that's just something that people do learn to understand when they've started doing a hobby like this, any kind of a creative endeavor, is that actually every piece doesn't have to be that great. It's mostly about the process, and you just do it to have fun and to express something. And then as you do it more and more often, you're actually gonna like what you make, but at first you're not going to, and it's more about the journey and more about expressing yourself and having fun. And that is the way it's supposed to be. You don't have to be perfect. You never have to become perfect. You can just have a very, very nice time with it. And that's what it's really all about, at least for me it is. And it's why I do this style, because I want to draw all the things that I think are fun, which is all the spooky stuff, obviously, and a lot of nature. And now I am doing that. And every minute I spend doing that or thinking about it makes me really, really happy. So I'm just out here constantly trying to get other people to try the things that they think they're gonna love. Because it's absolutely worth pursuing something like that. You don't need tons of practice or all the expensive supplies. You can just grab whatever, something you think is pretty, and just start. And that's the hardest part, because I am not the youngest person anymore. I am fully middle-aged, and like I said, I've only been doing this 6 years, which means it took me ages to get to this point. Yes, learning absolutely does take time, and that is something I have simultaneously had trouble with and had to explain to other people, because there are people who've done projects for my book and who are like, oh, this is so disappointing. It doesn't look exactly like I wanted it. And I'm like, yeah, no kidding. You have never done a drawing before. And for a first drawing, sometimes it looks absolutely fantastic and they're just still beating themselves up that their first drawing is not this perfect masterpiece and that some of the lines are maybe a little shaky. And I'm like, yeah, that's true, but it's still amazing. So I keep telling people that, like, people who call themselves professional artists and who do that for a living, their work is still not perfect, and they make plenty of things behind the scenes that they're really not all that excited about, not all that happy with, and that's just part of it. And I think everybody who does art or music or anything like that is really learning that you're doing it for the love of it. And sometimes it turns out and sometimes it doesn't, but you're always bettering yourself and enjoying yourself and discovering a lot about yourself. And so it's always going to be meaningful, and it doesn't need to look perfect for that. And I think this is just a massive tangent I started while thinking about maybe teaching people, but that's why I want to teach people, is literally I want to tell people that it's okay to make mistakes and that it's okay to be imperfect and that they should just start and give it a try if art is something they love. That is the message I want out there. I've said it in my book, and I said it in my TV interview, and I said it in my magazine interview. I'm just constantly repeating myself that art is fun and really enjoyable, and if you're someone who really loves that stuff, then doing this will make you happier, and you should try. And also, I kind of hate the idea that I would ever be at a point in my life where I have nothing left to learn, because learning makes me so happy. I'm about to start sort of a mixed media art journaling course that's something completely different from what I do. And I can't wait because I love learning new stuff. I think that's really, really fun. And I hope that I can always keep finding something that I have not done before. I know I want to do, nope, I forgot what that's called, but there's this, you've done it before, Sandra, I think, where you make things out of basically cotton balls and cornstarch, and you make little sculptures. I think we've talked about that. I want to try that this winter. And I want to make my own paper. And I've got a lot of things that I'm learning on my end, but I am looking to learn what other people would like to be taught by me. So if you are watching this and there's something you're curious about or that you'd love me to do, then please let me know, because I am currently really torn between what kind of things I'm gonna start teaching people first. And not in small part, that's because I have somehow developed a really big planner community, and I never saw that coming. Because I got my planner to sort of mess around and have fun in, which is ironic, and now everybody's like, oh, this is looking so cool, and I love your planner, and now I'm a planner person. So that was a very unexpected turn of events. So there may be people out there waiting for me to teach them something that I didn't even know everybody wanted to know about. Also, can you believe that I was worried about not being able to fill this time with talking? Because I have something to say always. Because art is just really... Christmas tree ornaments, yes, thank you. I knew we talked about that. I also saw the same lady who just cotton balls and some cornstarch and then a little bit of watercolor paint, and she made like a little mouse and like a radish, and I cannot. And if I had known about that when I was really, really poor growing up, I would have made an army of cotton ball mice, okay? I really hope that is a skill that I can sort of pick up, because I want to make cute cotton ball sculptures for sure. Do you guys have other creative hobbies that you love to do? I do. I have like a million creative hobbies that I like to do. And it's probably a few too many, but every time I see something that you can do sort of a handmade thing, anything, I'm like, oh, I need to try that, and I'm probably gonna love that. It's just I guess, in my DNA that any kind of creative endeavor looks like fun to me. Like, I get a month of Christine McConnell every year, her Patreon in October, and now I'm like, should I do woodcutting? Because, yes, exactly, too many. I am just so into all of those things, and so it's really, really hard to even decide a direction to go in. And I'm just wondering, I know for Sandra at least it is the same way. It's just there are so many interests to fall in love with, and they are all great. Like right now, something else I want to do is I want, first of all, a real dollhouse, but also a paper dollhouse, because I think if I could make like a 3D house and draw all the little wallpaper and make little ghost dolls that I can put all over it, I think that would be such a cool side project to make things for slowly. Although I'm also wondering if I would burn out before finishing it, but then I guess it would still have been really fun along the way. Look at me go, guys. I'm almost finished with my first layer. How are you doing? After this, we're gonna need to take a couple minutes again to let this dry a little. I'm gonna make all my candy purple because I painted myself into a corner. This is the only thing I have left to paint, so I'm not gonna let it dry 5 times to put different candy colors in it. I am just doing purple candy. There we go. And when we do that, I'm gonna let this dry. I'm gonna explain some bits about shading, because that's another bit where I can do a little bit to help if that's something you struggle with. We're gonna talk about light sources, but I need to give my paint a minute, and then we're gonna add some shading to it. And it looks like we are gonna be a little over 2 hours for the full stream, which is interesting because I sort of thought about it beforehand, like how long is it gonna be, and I was like, yeah, probably a little over 2 hours, and it is. Good for me. Running out of my tea. Also, got my nice decorations up for this. Kind of don't want to take them down now. Yeah, I think dollhouses, they're something that sometimes people keep their whole lives and also sometimes give to their kids afterwards. I'm really into, I don't know what it's called in English again, but it's like a house full of mice. Mouse Mansion, I think the English name is. It's in Amsterdam. And it's this couple who are slowly filling their whole house with more and more little rooms for their little mouse dolls. So that is like #1 on my bucket list, is that I need to go to Amsterdam to see this mouse house, because it's gonna be absolutely incredible. I'm gonna love it, I know it. It's just absolutely amazing. And also, if you're looking and if you're watching this and you want some inspiration, Tove Jansson, the lady who did Moomins, she had for a really, really long time a dollhouse that I believe her girlfriend got her, sort of give her a hobby while she wasn't doing so well. And that really got her out of her shell and got her something to put all her passion into. And she made this absolutely incredible dollhouse. And it's definitely, it's worth a watch. Look that up if you want. It's so amazing. I was so impressed by that. So now we're gonna add a little bit of shadow. And the one thing to remember when you add shading to a painting is you want to imagine where your light is coming from, and you want to be consistent with where you put your shadows. So what I did for this one, you can see that all the shadows are actually directly underneath all the items. Oh, I didn't do my ground. Let me do my dirt in a minute, but I'm gonna explain the shading first. The shadows are gonna go, in this case, I put the light source like right up here so that all the shadows are straight down, and it's kind of a dramatic look. Also, technically, they should be longer shadows with the light like that, but that doesn't really matter. But if you decide like, oh, my light's gonna come from the right, you put all your shadows on the bottom left side of things. Or if you want your light coming from the left, you know, so you just make sure that you put your shadows opposite of where you want your light to come from. And it doesn't matter what side you pick, it's just as long as you put it all on the same side, it's gonna look like it's supposed to. It's also not something people really notice when you mess it up, but I did want to explain it. Also, gonna pick this back up, wasn't done. There is a roof above the porch, so you want that wall underneath that porch. See, that's why my dark bit goes all the way up to this trim. That's the shadow of the roof. So you do want a little shadow underneath your roof, but otherwise we're just gonna add these shadows. I think I'm not gonna talk about that all that much because it's just put all your shading on one side. Or if you're more a coloring book person, your picture might be done at this point, but I'm gonna shade mine. And in terms of shading, again, if you're kind of new to it and you're painting watercolor, I mean, it is totally okay to not do super realistic shading in all kinds of different colors. If you've got a color that's like, for example, where is it, this one? Let me find it on my palette. If you've got sort of just a grayish, brownish, sort of muted, kind of like this, you know? Just kind of a bland color, that is totally gonna do the trick. You can just do lighter and darker shades of that. It's gonna look kind of like an old sepia picture, almost. Like, it's just gonna be a little bit more monochromatic than you normally would have it, but don't feel like you absolutely have to understand shadows and color theory. Grab yourself a brownish grayish color and just add that to everything, and it's totally gonna do the job. So you can do that if you're just starting out and you don't really know your colors. Don't let that stop you, because this will absolutely do. And I'm gonna start with my whole board shadow thing, because I know I'm gonna forget to do that otherwise. And then I'll add my dirt, which I also forgot. But it's turning into something. I like the colors of this. I think of all my projects that I did for the book, this one was the most difficult, where I was like, oh, all the colors, all the decorations, there's so many different directions I could take it in. And so this is an especially fun one to redo, because now I get to try some of the different things that I didn't do the other time. And that's really fun. I am going to continue to do my shading sort of directly straight down, because I do think that's fun and a dramatic look. And if you are someone who wants to, if you're like, oh, I want to make it look really dramatic, some really long shadows are gonna really help you out with that. That is one way to get a really dramatic look to a picture. Let me test how dark this is. A little bit more water. I'm gonna just do my ground color before I forget again. And that is something else that I actually struggled with so many times when I was first drawing things, was like, where do I stop coloring? Where is my quote-unquote edge of my picture, you know what I mean? And now I've just decided that I make a blob and it's wherever I want it to be. And it's not as hard, but I am missing what I used to do to fix this, because I used to draw these really elaborate frames around things. And I think I want to do some more of that, because drawing and designing these little ornate frames is also really cool. And someone asked me to do a tutorial on that, so expect that to be happening at some point in the future, because I thought that sounded like a lot of fun. But as you can see, the whole shading category of stuff, this is where you start to see real depth to a picture. So you don't really need it to really express what's there. It's just that if you do it, it's gonna have a little more depth to it. And that's what the shading is for. And would normally fuss with this for a really long time, but for the sake of this, we're just gonna do it kind of quick. And also what I should be addressing while I remove half the shadow is that some things have shadows on them and not just underneath. So that is something to keep in mind. That is how you add depth to stuff. So for example, I've got my cauldron, right? I'm gonna add some shading to that now. Because the cauldron is round, we're gonna do sort of a moon-shaped shadow and a line underneath this trim, because that would be hit with light from the top and the shadow would go underneath. So that's what a shadow would look like on that. And this is stuff that kind of takes a little bit of practice to get right, but is also not that big of a deal if it isn't quite exactly perfect, because I think people rarely notice, and it's not gonna take that much away from the look of your picture. What do you think? Is my house coming along? I think it looks pretty good. And I'm having a nice time doing this again in the first place, because like I said, it's actually, I constantly change my mind about what is my favorite project in the book, but this is one of my favorites because of the variety, the versatility to it, because this is just the most, like, if you ask a very young child to draw a house, this is the house they're gonna draw you. This is the shape. It's just that really basic, typical house that everybody thinks of when you're like, doodle a house. This is the house they give you. And yet you can dress it up in so many different, interesting ways. And it's gonna be different every time. And it's gonna still be fun every time. So I love just your basic house. I think that's awesome. Yeah, it's coming along. I'm also gonna put a couple of little shadows on my windows, like to make sure this looks like an overhang. And I hope I explained shadows right, guys. I hope that the way I said that helps you sort of understand where things need to go. Because that is the part that makes artwork sometimes a little bit complicated. It's just knowing where shading is. But it's only intimidating for a little while, I would say. This time I think I'm gonna do my paneling darker all the way. That is not realistic, but I do like the look. So we're gonna let I like the look win over what's realistic. Because I'm an artist and I get to do that, and so do you. But yeah, like I said, I've got a million things that I'm thinking about doing. And possibly filming myself doing. So right now I'm just deciding, like, do I want to do a drawing course or do I want to start my dollhouse? And which dollhouse do I want to do? And all of that is so hard to decide right now. But I am very excited regardless. So I guess there's not really a bad choice because I do want to do all of that anyway. I guess this is why Christine McConnell does so many. Skeleton from the window is behind me. Yes, thank you, Paul, for the warning. Actually, I think you guys should be really proud of me for the way I got that hung up here. And Paul as well. We like, it's not actually supported by anything. It is like very carefully balanced. Like if I touch it, it's gonna fall. So I'm really, really proud we got that up there. Isn't it cool? Let's do some red flowers this time. Well, pink, I guess. And then some more roof shading and a little bit in my windows and pumpkins, and I think mine will be finished. Really coming along. I hope your guys' drawings are coming along okay as well. Actually, I think this one I'm gonna leave alone because I brought a big brush today. So I don't even think I have the ability to add these tiny, tiny, tiny slat shadows, but I can do this a little bit and a little bit on my branches. And I'm kind of hoping, guys, that I can later on convince Paul to draw a haunted house as well, because he is not an artist and he has already done a project. But I think Paul is especially really good at sort of thinking of really cool ideas to add to something. So I want to see him decorate a house, because that is very much his strength and he would make it really, really cool. I know it. So Paul, you heard that. Now you know I want to see that. You don't have to, but think about it. All right. Guys, Paul brought me a tiny brush for my details. Oh, that's really sweet. Now I can add some extra little shading. If I want. But most of all, I need to do that for my pumpkins, because my pumpkins are looking awful flat, aren't they? My box is actually, I don't even know how many orange, because I keep buying orange paints, because while I totally don't mind mixing colors, I do really, really want to have just a pumpkin orange. And this is it. This is the pumpkin orange that I finally found. But I think this is my 6th or my 7th orange paint that I've bought, because online it's always a little bit, what color is it really? And then at the store they've got like the beautiful white neon light, and then you go home and all of a sudden it's more so carrot than pumpkin. Keeps happening to me, all the carrot. I have so many carrot orange paints that I bought by accident. Also, your pumpkins, you kind of want to leave the middle part a little bit lighter than the outside. That's how you know the pumpkin's round. So we're gonna do roughly this, see? And that's gonna add a lot of depth to the pumpkins. And if anyone's watching who's following along or doing this from my book, guys, I am serious when I say, please show me your pictures. Nothing makes me happy like seeing what other people have made from my projects. I think that is so much fun. People are so creative. Everybody does something different. And I think that's absolutely incredible, and that's the coolest thing about art. Because I remember the guy who, I swear I'm not bringing up this TV interview to brag, but the guy who did my TV interview, he asked me multiple times, like, when you're teaching other people exactly how you draw, are you worried that they can take your jobs from you? And I'm like, no, because the art skill itself is not the part that makes your art special. It's your voice as a person, the choices you make, the things that you decide to put in your artwork. All these little things are what make your art yours. And there cannot be too many artists. It's just something that lots of people can do. And it's awesome. And I think saying that you like absolutely no art is like saying you don't like movies or music. I feel like there's probably a kind of art that you like, you know what I mean? I feel like you can't just not like art at all. Now that I've got my tiny brush, I was gonna call this done, but now I can add some really small details, so I'm gonna. Now I can add a little bit of depth to my pillars. I think we're coming along. I like that I did like a little bit more purple in this one, because the other one it doesn't have. I went with classic just orange black palette, and I think that was another choice I made, because that time I was thinking about the overall balance of the book and trying to get as many different color palettes, styles, topics in there as I could. Whereas now that I'm doing this as a standalone picture, I just get to add anything I like to it so that it's different. Because not to toot my own horn, but I think one of the best things about my book is that I did spend a lot of time really trying to figure out how to get as many different examples, topics, you know, people of all kinds of shapes, sizes, ages, genders. I've got a huge variety of stuff in there specifically because I want people to be able to draw generally anything that they would like, and I tried to put a lot of effort into creating a book that could teach, you know, I want people to get to that end of the book and be like, okay, I can draw anything that I might want to draw. And that was really my goal with it, and I really hope that I did do that. So if you're someone who's read that, let me know if you think I succeeded or if you think there's something you wish I would have done. I would love to know that too, because like I said, whether it's in book form or not, I do want to keep teaching people. So it would help to know what people want to learn from me. Gonna add some more shadows to my ghosts. You know what's funny? I keep thinking like, okay, that's all my shading done, and then I see something else. I bet that's happening for you guys too. But that's fine as well. There's no specific amount of time we need to spend here. I'm kind of picturing everybody having me on in the background while they do their own art or their own work. And I hope it is feeling a little bit like a cozy art club, which, again, I'm so bitter I don't have an art club near me. I just want to hang out with people and draw pictures. Like, I haven't been able to do that since maybe kindergarten. I really miss that. I still miss that. Just doing something creative as a group. Because I just love seeing what other people like to create and what they think about and how it translates, which I just think is so awesome. I'm looking at it one more time, but I think after some shading on the floor, I'm gonna call this done. Let me know how all of your pictures are coming along. And I wish I could show you, while I was talking about it, the examples of like the different variety of things that I put in my book, but I'm actually not allowed. My publisher said I can show people as many art pieces as I like, but I can't show them the pages because then they can just understand how to make everything from seeing the full pages, and I understand that. But it's also hard not to be allowed to show you. There we go. Might connect this a little bit, because dirt isn't really flat. Definitely our dirt isn't flat. We have a dog, he digs. Our garden is like a death trap. Doesn't have anything to do with anything, but since I was talking about it, that made me think of it. Realized that my pumpkin stems are not very green, so I'm gonna put a little bit more. But I think we are good. I like it. I like it. Yep. Roof trim. Hold on. One final touch. This one. There we go. I don't think that's even necessarily realistic, but I do think that makes just a really pretty transition to that other bit. How about that? Now I'm gonna call it done, and that means we are gonna sign it. Sign your work, guys. Even if you're like not an artist and you maybe don't draw all that much, if you write at least the date It's gonna be so cool when you look at it in 5, 10, 20 years. And you're gonna be like, oh, that's what I made back then. It's just really, really cool to have your stuff signed. So I'm gonna sign this. And I'm gonna give you one more closer look at the piece, and I think that's about it for today. I hope you all got to finish yours. What do you think? This one's a little bit looser, it's got a little bit more of a painterly vibe, whereas this one, a little bit more precise. This has the cozy warm fall colors, this is more the spooky Halloween vibe. So you've got kind of two examples to try for yourself as well, maybe. I hope you liked it. I hope you had a really fun time. Please show me your drawings when you're done. Will you do that? Please do that. And with that, I think we're done here. So thank you guys so much for watching. And I hope to see you in the next one. Let me know what you would like me to make if there is a next one. And take care of yourself and have a happy Halloween.